Welcome to our October event as we gather to really start to learn some of the processes associated with the League of Women Voters. We have a very busy year coming up, so hopefully this will get us prepared to really dive in and support the community of Long Beach. So Renee, I think is going to take us from here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
With coffee in hand.
Okay, my job is to kind of give you an overview, and then we'll get to the details. Jan mostly will get to the details. Okay, so the program is really intended to be of interest to more experienced members and newer members. I'm watching very carefully my language, not to say old or senior or anything like that. But anyway, okay. So for the newer members, it'll be a primer on the unique league process, and it is unique. And to the seasoned members, kind of a refresher and information about the league and maybe some less familiar processes. Okay, the league has an approach to working with and within the community that's different from all other organizations that I know, and I've belonged to a number of them. But the league is compulsively nonpartisan. And being nonpartisan guides everything that we do as the League of Women Voters. This is an interesting time because this is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to women's opportunity to vote. So, okay. We never support candidates or political parties. And of course, those who are publicly identified with the League have a special responsibility so that our president, for example, who's recognized as the president of the League of Women Voters, it is really not permitted to be publicly identified with a political party or a political candidate. But the rest of us absolutely must. Okay, so what does the League do? We do primarily two things. One, we try to help voters become better informed voters so that we will encourage the people to vote and to vote with knowledge. And hello, dog. Okay. And we help voters with things like voter registration, with getting more information, and we will talk a little later about talking about the ballot measures, helping people become better informed so that they can vote with really with the sense that they know what they're voting for. And the other thing we do is we are advocates. We advocate for particular issues that we know something about. We, at every level, local, county, state, national, the League we will study an issue, learn about it, and then we can take and then when we have what we call consensus, which means we don't really take a vote, we say, well, this is what we believe, this is how we would go. And then and then if we have studied an issue, like locally, things that we have studied and can take a public position on, like homelessness, the environment, land use, And in our roster, there's a list of all the programs that we have studied locally and have a position in support of. In that case, if an issue arises at the city council level that affects housing, we can decide that fits within an issue that we have studied, we know something about it, and then the league, as a league, can take a position publicly. We can send letters to the editor, we can speak before the council, we can do things that say the League of Women Voters supports these things. But as we'll talk a little later, if we cannot take a position as a league, nor can you as an individual member support something that says, I'm a member of the League of Women Voters and I believe. We can't do that unless it's an issue that it's something we have studied and we do have a position in favor or opposed to. Otherwise, you as an individual can send a letter to the editor, but you may not say, I'm supporting this as a member of the League of Women Voters. So, with that, let's see how all this stuff plays out in the real world, and Jan's going to tell us some greater detail about some of those, and then I'll come back with some other things.
Okay. So all of this is a way of saying we want everybody to be as strong a league member as possible. And we are strong when we know what it is that we do as a league and how we do it. As Renee said, we operate a little differently than most organizations, and I'll touch on a couple of those very specifically. The first thing is that we are divided into two areas. We have a voter education process. That was the original purpose of the league. Carrie Chapman, I can never remember her name. Carrie
Chapman
Cat. They all have three names, and for some reason I just am not processing. Anyway, she carried basically the country to the 19th Amendment. And as she was attending the convention in February of 1920, she realized that the big need, should the 19th Amendment pass through the state, would be that women historically had never voted and were probably ill-informed on exactly what the issues were. And so she formed the League of Women Voters to provide voter education, originally specifically for women, but it has grown, of course, to be for everybody because we do that role very, very well. So I'm going to spend a little time this morning in voter education, specifically on our voter registration processes. We have some beautiful tabling materials. I want to introduce you to it. The registration process is, if you want to volunteer, this is the easiest place. There's not a lot of rules other than we're not allowed to take positions or wear, dump Trump buttons or, I hate Hillary or whatever. We're not allowed to do that in public while we're representing the league. So we can talk about voter registration. We've got all the materials for you. I'm going to talk about candidate forums. We've run into trouble in the past. We're really good at candidate forums. We do a really good job. But we keep running into people who want to sponsor a candidate forum because they like a particular candidate. And that's the candidate they want. And so they say, let's do a forum and you can help us. And nobody tells the league that they actually have put up billboards supporting a particular candidate. There's a chair right over there, Lois. Help yourself. Right over there. Nice comfy one.
Thank you.
So we're just going to talk about what some of the guidelines are for candidate forums so that we don't have to go back and say, we can't actually participate in this forum because we found out you didn't invite all the candidates, or you are actively campaigning against one of the candidates, or whatever it is. So we want to go through some of the guidelines on that. And then Renee's going to come back up and she's going to talk about pros and cons. This is one of the most popular things that we do as a league. We got, the last year, I don't even know, Thelma, how many calls we got for candidate forums. We lost track. It was probably somewhere around 21, 22 different times that teams of members went out and spoke to people. Pros and cons is our shorthand for ballot propositions. And every year it seems like there's more and more. We had 26, I think, last year when we added in the Long Beach ones. And so it's people are like, just tell me how to vote. And we don't do that, but we do tell you, here are the things you should be thinking about. And here's where the money is coming from. So she'll talk about that. Then I think we should probably take a little break here because we separate these two areas in the league anyway. And we'll talk about advocacy. And Renee touched on that. So how do we know what it is we advocate for? How do we know? Well, we've got a very specific process that we go through to get to a place where we as a league have a position. Whether it's at the local, county, state, national level, we have a very specific process. And we'll show you what that is. And that'll get you ready for the January, February timeframe this year, maybe earlier, maybe later, when we'll actually do that again. In response, because we do it every year, either for state or for national, and then we can consider our local positions as well. And you'll be ready to go through that process. And then the last thing is, we're going to talk about, and Renee has touched on it a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about what are the responsibilities as a league member. And one of them is we've had members send letters to the editor that were not cleared by the board and that were signed so-and-so, member of the League of Women Voters Long Beach. And that's not okay. You know, the board has to say, yes, this is in alignment with our position and we want to do it. Or, you know, as individual members, we have responsibilities. So we want to go over that. And then the last piece is volunteering. Renee has a bunch of voter registration events that are coming up. I've got a new volunteer for you, Renee, by the way. We've got a convention in Long Beach that we're going to support with the voter registration table. We've got all kinds of opportunities. If candidate forums sound like fun, sign up now for the Speakers Bureau, and then we'll have you ready to go out and be ready to do that later on. If I could have your attention, please. First of all, please thank Kim for providing these outrageously beautiful and professional looking materials. She's responsible for this. We used to have a little sign that had been taped over 16 times and was torn on all the edges that said League of Women Voters. So this looks so much more professional. I'm so excited about it. We have, I'm not sure that this is exactly how this is supposed to look.
Yeah, it should be taught.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
if you can figure out how to do it, let me
You
know.
can figure out how to do it, but that was the best we could come up with.
Jane and I had to have Matt.
We hate to admit this, but
Yeah.
he showed us how to do it.
Well, you're going to have to show us because we don't know how to do it either. And then what we've got is a little bit of information about the league. So we've got our Vote Education Advocate Impact brochure. We've got a Voter's Edge, which we support. We've got a copy of the Constitution, which is extremely popular.
Very popular.
And it says compliments of the League of Women Voters Long Beach. Okay? So this is an incredibly, these are going like, because there's a lot of talk right now about the Constitution, what is and isn't in the Constitution. And then we have voter registration materials. Now, this is the form for, I believe it's Los Angeles County. You register to vote in the state, but you have to register within the county, not at the county, but for the county that you live in. So if you live in Los Angeles County and you want to fill out a paper form, this is the form you fill out. The one for Orange County is pink. So you'd fill out that if you live in Seal Beach or some other part of Orange County.
And we have
a lot
both.
of people from Rossmore, and you've got a line of people, and it's really easy to let Seal Beach slip by. And then
Right. Seal Beach is right on the border, and people don't think about the fact that that's the county they're in.
Yeah.
Online, it asks you your address, and so it's much easier because it just plunks you into the right county. One of the great things this year is that there will be same-day registration at the polling place. I mean, I am so proud of California. Other people are asking for ID and voting is limited to like between 9 and 10 in the morning. And I mean, so many restrictions, and we're allowing people to register on the day of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. When we go out, will both Orange County and LA
Yes.
County be available to us? So
Yeah,
we can
these are the
ask?
heaviest thing.
Yeah.
I only brought one version.
Yeah.
I have them in my car to get to Diane for the
All right.
next voter registration.
Yeah, no, we have both. The thing, most of the time, we seem to be at places where there are young people, and what they want is, how do I register online?
Yeah.
And
It
they'll
is
either
easy.
take a picture of this,
Yeah.
or they'll take one with them. We also have, this was developed last year, which I love, by a professor. We did an event at Long Beach. What was her name?
Susan Gridley.
Susan Gridley. I've got a block on that too. I'm old. These are websites that are relevant, ways that you can check what the ballot measures are, summary guides, Voters Edge, Ballotpedia, so you can get lots of information on the ballot measures, all of that kind of thing. And of course, the pros and cons on cavotes.org is one of the most popular too.
I think all that's on our website as well.
Right, it's all on the website. And then, who got these? Vicky got us vote buttons, which is perfect. This is the league in one word. This is the league. So I give those away. We love them. We don't take credit for it, but we love them. So is there any of this that you would like to see, Thelma?
Pardon?
Is there any of this you want to see?
The reason I would like everybody to know, I came from the state of Illinois and Chicago. You want this? And the first time we were eligible to vote, there were about 21,000.
31.
And 3 people on my block were members of the League of Women Voters. And my son was 3, and he's 69. I have been a member ever since.
And that's just testimony to what I said before. The pros and cons are probably the biggest gift we give the community, and we do a really good job. We really do. Thelma has run it for years. We go out, and there's no, by the way, there's no wink wink or, this is what the people who support it say. This is what the people who oppose it say. Here's where the money is. Neutral. No, and we've had people who've been on the Speakers Bureau who are like, well, you could support it, that kind of, and you can't do that. We do it very neutrally, and because of that, we're very well respected in the community. Okay, so this is basically the setup for a voter registration table. We usually have a lot less space than this. There's normally 1 or 2 people. If there's 1, you stay behind the table and answer questions. If there's 2, somebody can be out in the crowd. If there's 3, then we can really handle a bunch of people. One thing about the paper forms, I encourage you to have them take them with them. Then they are responsible for mailing it. If they fill it out and leave it with you, you are responsible for mailing it, and there's a deadline of, I think, 48 hours. You've got to get this in the mail in 48 hours. That's on you as the volunteer at that table. Hey.
But, well, in previous, I have actually always taken that responsibility because I would rather know that it got in the mail.
That's fine. As long as you know that that's your responsibility and you're willing to accept it, then take that thing back, because they may not ever actually fill it out and get it to a mailbox.
And there is a little piece you tear off to give to them.
To give to them, right. And that is their receipt, okay? So the first time you volunteer, just make sure that you're volunteering with somebody else the first time. It's really easy peasy. It's the easiest thing to volunteer for. Lois.
Other suggestion, having registered voters at huge places like the county fair, really good idea to have your buddy look it over. You think, your brain thinks what you thought they were gonna write when they were writing it on this. And then you let your buddy look at it, because stuff will jump out at you, because
That's
it's
a good idea.
new. And so I'll catch stuff from hers, and she'll catch stuff from mine.
Yeah.
where they didn't fill out the form, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, wrong county.
Yeah. And here's the thing, because we now have same-day registration, those problems can be fixed. So it's not as big an issue. The other thing, it was in my head. Oh, Sometimes we have a ton of people. Sometimes we have nobody. We're still doing a service because we remind people that they need to register. We remind people that they need to vote. So even if nobody comes up to the table during the whole 2 hours you're there, don't worry about it. You've still been of service to the community.
And sometimes they come up to the table and say, thank you guys for doing this. I'm already registered.
Yep. Yeah, we get a lot of that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
sometimes they'll give you the kids, they won't do that, but they'll give whatever their sign is, I don't know, but some kind of sign.
One of the biggest questions we got was, how do I change my address? And you actually fill that form out again.
Fill this form out again or go online. Very easy to change your address online.
Is the same day registration for every county, or are we just talking about LA County?
I believe it's statewide.
Really?
Yep.
Because when they were giving examples of the new voting procedure in LA County, which is not going to be in Orange County, that's when they said you can register when you go to vote, but I'm not sure you can do that.
This is my understanding. We can
was
check
announced.
it.
It was
And what I'd
announced
like
at
to
the
do is
state
ask for a volunteer, because we're going to ask people to do volunteer today. Volunteer that it is a statewide, that LA County is implementing it right now. What's different in LA County is the process by which we vote.
Yeah.
But I think we could not do same-day registration if the state hadn't pressed it.
Oh,
It's state.
It's state.
LA Times says Californians will soon be able to register to vote on election day.
Oh,
Right,
great.
so
It
it's
was
a
announced by Gavin
California
Newsom,
law.
I believe, yeah.
The voting boxes, the tablets that we're using are different. They're LA County only, but the laws have to be consistent because we register to vote as a Californian. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is candidate forums. We've had many successful candidate forums. For a long time, Bea Antonor was our moderator. She had an excellent reputation in the community for being fair and unbiased and doing a really good job on candidate forums. We lost Bea a few years ago, but we're continuing in that tradition. But we have had some issues recently, and it has to do with kind of the political climate. For example, the last forum that Bea moderated, we had a city council member forum. He was trying to win re-election, and he objected to a member of the press who had her phone out and was recording everything he said. She was not a legitimate member of the press. Well, sorry, she was an internet blogger. I guess that's legitimate. I don't know. Anyway, they got into a wrestling match over her phone, and he took it from her. And he gave it back to her shortly thereafter. But we were caught in the middle. Bea was just standing there with her mouth hanging open. She couldn't believe anybody would do that. We were caught in the middle of, does the press have a right to record? You know, what is the appropriate behavior for a candidate? He was screaming that we were being unfair. It was a mess. Those of us who were there, it was a mess. So, we want to be prepared. We want to do the best job we can. The other thing we ran into, and Kim had this one last year, it was a beautiful invitation from Bellflower, I think, Artesia School District, and they wanted us to come and moderate a forum for Artesia. And we were going to do it. And then it turned out that not all the candidates were invited, or
No, what happened was, it was a anti-development group, not the school district.
oh, okay,
And then I started getting calls from incumbents who were saying, oh, you don't realize how biased these people are. And then I'm like, okay, I'll check this out. And then I got another call from their Chamber of Commerce, kind of implying that it would get rowdy and not to worry, that they'd have sheriffs there to keep us safe. Threat.
so
what did you do?
yeah.
Oh, so I talked to the people who invited us, and I said, we just really don't want to get in the middle of this. And then she says, and I explained the situation. And she says, is it okay if I put on our Facebook page exactly what happened? And I said, I don't care, it's your deal. And then, so they did that. Then I got a call from the guy again saying, or a text saying, I want to talk to you about what they wrote. And I said, sorry, we're done. Deal with them.
Yeah.
It was a very, very strange situation.
Okay, so the first rule of thumb with forums, because all of you can be asked, would the League of Women Voters be willing to do a forum? All of you can be asked. The first rule of thumb is start early. One of our best forums was with the Seroptimists, right? No, it was
we didn't.
not the Seroptimists. The
Bellflower School District was always a good one.
where we met at that coffee shop.
Oh, the private coffee shop, huh? I missed that.
No.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
No, what's the group that helps people become community leaders?
Long Beach.
Leadership Long Beach.
No, not that one. Anyway,
Okay.
Building healthy communities.
no,
It's
no,
all
no,
right.
no, no.
Go on.
It was mostly women who we met at Crumbs. What's
Yeah.
the grounds?
Yeah.
Crumbs. Anyway, we started 6 months before the election. They contacted us. 6 months. We met 3 or 4 times. We divvied up responsibilities. They asked what our guidelines were. We handed them our written guidelines. They showed us the letter they were going to send to candidates. We approved it. It went beautifully. It was a work of art. It was so professionally done, and it was extremely well attended. Part of why we ask people, why we like co-sponsoring, is that we get a much bigger participation when we have co-sponsors. It's what we don't do them ourselves.
Junior league to me.
Might have been junior league. It was junior league.
Yeah, that
Okay,
may
so
be
that's
worse
what.
that way.
Yeah, so they were amazing. So we start very early. We have specific guidelines from National League of Women Voters on how to do this. One of them is that we have a legal consideration, IRS rules. If we cannot, first of all, we can't endorse, but if there is an empty chair debate, if there are 2 candidates and only one shows up, it's a political contribution, and there is money owed the IRS. So there's ramifications that go way beyond anything that we would think about even. So you have to watch out for stuff like that.
So in that case, do we just not hold it?
We
Would that be-
withdraw from the sponsorship. We do not participate. They can find somebody else. I think Artesia found somebody else to moderate it. They went ahead with it, but they found somebody else to moderate.
Another thing that I did with a congressional debate was because I didn't want that to happen. So I didn't ask the question so she could tell me no. Well, that was Bonnie for one, and I had to find her at the car wash, but I never asked, so she could never say no. I just said, here's your parking pass, this is how we're gonna do it, we'd love to have you, and also Richardson. And she even came, even though she was supposed to meet Clinton in Anaheim. So if you're really savvy, which I was fortunate to be on boards with them, so they couldn't afford to diss me, I just sent their office. Now, if she'd have said no, I'd have accepted it. But
Well, they can say no.
no, she didn't.
But my point is they can say no, but we can't do a forum with one person.
Right.
Right? So if there's 6 candidates and 1 doesn't show or 2 doesn't show, we can still go ahead. It's their option. They were invited,
Right.
especially if they were invited in plenty of time.
I'm just saying it was at the pyramid, so we took our chances of having a double billing. So I didn't think both of them would back out, and we got both of them.
Okay, so, and then our other, the role that we play best is to actually moderate the event. So we ask the questions. In most cases, we actually design the questions, or at least in partnership with our co-sponsors. We do the timing. We have paddles and stuff like that we hold up so that they can, do we still have the paddles? They seem to have disappeared.
And I keep them in the trunk of my car so that if someone forgets them.
Yeah. So Phyllis?
I just mentioned, we always ask the questions to be submitted in writing.
Well,
People
but
don't stand up.
the original questions,
Oh, yeah.
questions we design with the co-sponsor. And then if audience questions, we almost always require, not ask, require that they be submitted in writing. And we do that because we get 65 questions that are the same one, and 1 or 2 that are really valuable, other kinds of questions. And we take heat for not, you didn't ask my question, just like we did at the at the aquarium last year. You know, you didn't ask my question, but that's okay. We were limited time and we do the best job we can sorting through them. We track who has answered a question so that each candidate has an approximately equal time to answer first. We require that we call on people if they're going to speak in rebuttal. You might have watched the debate the other night. It's a similar kind of thing. You may speak now. You may speak now. No, you can't answer right now. Somebody else has to speak. We do that. And if the audience gets rowdy, it's up to us to calm things down and say, you know, if the audience cannot be quiet, it's a good idea to have security if we're expecting a lot of people. We've done that at Cal State Long Beach, and it's been good that we've had security because they can remove people who are making it impossible to hear the candidates.
The environment today, is there a budget to ensure that there is security presence?
We would require our co-sponsors to do that.
Okay, but it is required.
Not necessarily. We've done candidate forums. We did one for mayor a couple of years ago. We had probably 200 people in attendance, and 11 people were running for mayor at the time. There was no problem.
No.
Most of the time, there's not a problem. If you've done your homework in advance and you're asking the right questions, this is a candidate forum. So pros and cons might be another thing. We've had issues with other things. I can talk about that later. But for the most part, it's going to be okay. If you get a warning that somebody is up in arms about a particular candidate, then we could talk about providing a budget or getting our co-sponsors to provide a budget.
Another reason we take questions in writing is to prevent people from asking really inappropriate things, and then also to prevent that sort of grandstanding that can get out of control.
Right.
Yeah. I feel insecure these days about
Well,
what's happening in our country, and I just wonder.
I'll tell you what, we have declined candidate forum invitations because it felt like it would be too contentious. And that's up to the group of people, the board and or the committee that is putting that together. And if there's any hint that it's gonna get out of control, then we would withdraw. We do not participate in rude, inappropriate dialogue because that it isn't actually dialogue.
I seem to recall the one time we accepted, and then we checked out the website of the group and we declined because the website was too provocative and
Right.
mean-spirited.
And we don't, as Kim said, I'll build on that, we don't allow those don't you think questions.
Yeah.
All the information that we need so that we can do the job that we do really, really well when we can create the conditions that are appropriate for the kind of an event that the league sponsors. We want dialogue. We don't want ranting and raving.
When somebody calls you and says, ABC wants, what should the person who's making the, what shall she say to that person?
She should say, send me all the information that you have this far, and I will take it to my board, and we will see if we can do it.
Because we never even thought of something like this.
Exactly.
Lo, these many years ago.
Well, and this is the thing, the political climate has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And we've had some experiences that I don't think we would have had 25 years ago. So what we're saying is don't say yes until you have all the information. And we say yes as a league, not as an individual.
Well, the other thing I wanted to add is that what we have started seeing is people wanting to use us, to use our good name for their political
And
events.
then they say we've endorsed.
Yeah.
Right.
We might have a checklist for the person handling the calls, what information we need from a group.
Well, that is another opportunity for volunteering. I have a lot of information here, but Renee and I did not have time to put this together. It is a great opportunity to go through the material and put together a suggested checklist for someone who is getting calls. And then we can send it out, put it on the website. All our members will have it, no matter who you are. So that's a second opportunity for volunteering that we're gonna take volunteers at the end. Thank you, Phyllis, for that segue.
So when they call, how do they know to call? Because they know you're in the league?
Well, they know you're in the league. You may be talking about, boy, it's going to be an interesting race for the second district this year. Wow, we've got a lot of candidates for mayor. Whatever it is, you can say, well, yeah, I'm in the league, and we tend to. It'll just be part of conversation. Or they will contact the phone number associated with the league, or send a note through the web, and we can answer it that way. But individuals get contacted for this stuff, and I just want you to be prepared. Last comment, because we're going to move on.
Plus, the league traditionally got really good publicity in the past because we did the presidential debate. So the older people have that in their mind. They don't realize that nationally we don't do that anymore. But the league, yeah, okay.
There's actually no history in the national website of us ever having done that.
It is.
You'll have to send me that link.
It is.
I looked for it.
I talked about it on TV.
I would love to see the link.
I'm going to print it out and mail it to you.
Thank you. That's fine. Send me the link. Mail it to me. I would love to see it, because that was my impression too. But I have been disabused of that, so I'd love to get that back. Okay. I would like to move on to our next topic. How do y'all feel about that?
Perfect.
Perfect. It's Renee. That's what
Think okay?
That's really perfect. The pros and cons, which is, as Janet said, one of maybe the most well-known, most popular service that the league offers to the community. And it's a lot of fun. California is renowned for citizen legislation. And that's what, when I say pros and cons, I'm talking about the measures that appear on your ballot. Some often as many as 12, 15, and then those are state ballot. There are sometimes some city ballot measures. And this is the citizens' opportunity. I feel maybe it's a burden, but nonetheless, the citizens' opportunity to do what the state legislature ought to be doing, which is making laws. And how does a measure get on your ballot? Usually a big interest group, because it's costly. You have to have, I don't know what percentage, 25%, do you know what the percentage is? Of the people who voted in the previous general election, valid signatures, which are then checked by the Secretary of State, to qualify a measure for the ballot, for the state ballot. Happily, we only do this now primarily once at general elections, not at primaries. But anyway, and then now the state law is that the legislature then has an opportunity to look at this proposal, and the legislature can in fact take it on as an issue for the state legislature rather than having it appear on the ballot. But if they choose not to, then the issue will appear on the ballot. The wording of the title is very important. It will give people a clue as to what it's about or how to vote on it. And so the Secretary of State goes over and actually creates the title that's going to appear on the ballot, and the Legislative Council's office at the state level will write the description of what this measure is about for your state ballot. These are often, well, there are a couple of things that the voters must vote on. A state constitutional amendment, or a tax issue, about bond issue. We are required to have those on the ballot. But other things such as
daylight saving time. Daylight saving time.
Well, I was thinking of an issue that had to do with and it will probably appear again. The contracting with drug companies for reducing or to charge the same rate as the VA. Right. So that was a big issue. Or rent control. Then you have issues that whose ox is getting gored? Who's going to benefit from this? Is this the realtors or the apartment house owners association are always very opposed to anything that smacks of the government saying you can only raise your rents by 3% or 5% or whatever. So what do we do when we are called on to go out to a community? We're always invited. Organizations invite us to come and just describe for the members what each ballot measure is about, what would happen if it is adopted, who is supporting it and who is opposing it, which organizations, how much money each interest group is putting into advertising for the ballot measure or against the ballot measure, and you'll find big chunks of difference. The realtors may have put in $11 million in promoting, suggesting people vote against it, and the homeowners or the renting groups will put in, maybe they can only raise $1 million. So it's important to know that, and that's the kind of information that we provide. Now, when there are 20 ballot measures and the organization says, well, we give you 30 minutes, you really can't do a decent job. And so, we'll often say, well, we'll have to pick and choose which ones are important to your organization. The league, I said, sometimes it's an issue that the California League of Women Voters has a position on. And then it's a little touchy when you say, these are the organizations or these are the individuals that have signed the ballot measure in support of this. The California League of Women Voters. Well, they're on the ballot, so their name is there, but you try to keep the league out of it, and the members of the group you're talking to will say, well, how does the league feel about this? And our standard answer is, we can't tell you now, but after the meeting, talk to us and we can tell you what the league position is. But we try to keep the presentation as impartial as we possibly can. So, okay, the ballot measures are your opportunity to be a state legislator. And as I said, we will try to get something in the local newspaper that says, call the League of Women Voters if you're interested in hearing about the ballot measures. So we promote the opportunity for groups to call on us, and we get a lot of calls. It's fun to be a presenter. We have training sessions. We have a lot of information that about each ballot measure that we can study on our own. But it's really a lovely opportunity to go out to the community and try to explain in words that are clear, simple, concise. This is what it will do. It takes a lot of practice, but you get a feeling of, this is really why I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, because I'm doing something. Yes, Phyllis?
And nobody goes out alone.
No, oh no, that's right. Always two. Always two. So that's a big opportunity as a leader.
Let me talk about program. So when you talk about, is everybody here? Yes. She knows this stuff. She's an expert on program. So when other people talk about program, if I was the director of programs in any other organization, that would mean you go get the speakers. You design what our monthly meetings are like. You go do that. That's not what program means in League. Program is actually a process to develop positions. They almost made it. So that there can be our help in passing or opposing legislation that we then go out and promote so it's a process to form a position that is policy that for us that we will then take to legislators and we will support it or oppose it. And then we will have campaigns out in the real world so let me give you an example of some of our positions. We have positions at the local chapter, Long Beach level. We have them at the county level. We have them at state, and we have them at federal. And we have them in 3 areas. One is government, one is natural resources, and one is social policy. So, an example of a government Long Beach position. Renee is going to like this one. Financing the Long Beach library system. We voted on that in 96, 97. We reaffirmed it in 2006. This is what the position in brief says. We support an assured, stable, adequate, and fiscally sound source of funding for the Long Beach Public Library. Following a local study, this position was adopted at the annual meeting of the League of Women Voters Long Beach area on May 21st, 1997. In adopting the finding of the local studies, we agreed to the following, and I'll just read 1 or 2 of these. The need to restore adequate hours of service, including extended daytime, evening, and weekend hours.
And that just came up recently, actually.
They're still at it.
Yeah.
And because we have this position, we can go charging off to the city council and say, what do you mean you're cutting funding for local libraries? We have
Well, you're not open on Sundays.
We have a position that says we can go do that we all
They were going
agree
to close on Saturdays.
Some of the ones that we have that are a little higher level, we have, and I don't have a lot of detail here, but I'll give you an idea. We have positions on climate change at the state level. We have a position on agriculture at the national level. We have a position on environmental protection and pollution control, national. Land use, state. Child care, state and national, they're a little different. Gun safety, national. Public higher education, state. So we have lots and lots of programs.
How did we get those?
I'm glad you asked.
I thought that after I stopped coming, that you've taken up all of these, and my mouth was open.
Most of these have been in place for a very long time. But let's say we have a new issue, and I'm just going to pull one out. I don't even know if we have a position on it. Let's say the league wants to investigate the issue of what do they call it? Dark state web influence on elections. Okay?
Really?
Dark web influence on elections. So somebody might say, I think this is important and the league needs to develop a position on that. My first guess is that, and we would look, does that fit into any of our current positions? If the answer is no, let's say it's at the state level. We might recommend that it go to national level because that's maybe a more appropriate level to handle something as big as the dark web. But we decide what the appropriate level is. That is recommended. People will write some possible policy that would be our position, and then it gets sent out to the local leagues to vote on. We agree, we don't agree, we would agree if it changed to this. Okay? So in December, January, February timeframe, one year it's national, the next year it's state, and we include our local positions at all times when we do this, we look at new positions that are being proposed. We go through it, we say yes, no, or if it changed to this, and we send that off. That gets taken to the national convention or the state convention, depending on what level is working it. It's proposed and there's a floor vote. So all the leagues all around the country would read the position, say yes, no, or maybe, and that would all go to the national convention. It gets voted on, it's agreed to. It's now our policy. So now if something comes out about dark web influence on the elections, we can campaign, we can hire, National does, have lobbyists on staff that visit legislators and complain or promote a particular position. We can file amicus briefs in court that say we oppose or we support a particular position, but it starts with the meeting here at the local level.
But somebody has to have given the members enough information so they can study
Exactly.
the issue.
So that happens either with a committee at the local level, or a committee at the state level, or a committee at the national level. They do the research, and then they pull together particular questions that would answer the concerns that members might have. Specifically, about 8 years ago, we did one on immigration. And I facilitated those conversations. We held them over 3 meetings of competition. It was extremely contentious, as you might imagine. There were lots of voices from within the league, our members, who said yes, and others who said no. We don't like that policy. We want a more liberal policy. We want a more restrictive policy on immigration. And we as a local league could not achieve consensus. And we sent the information to national. And a lot of leagues sent other information. Some approved what national was trying to do. Some rejected what national was trying to do. They did a modification, and we came out with a very, very weak position on immigration. If you look at it right now, it's very, very weak. There's not a lot we can do inside of that. On the other hand, the issue on library turned out to be a really valuable thing, because we've gone...
I don't know what's going on. I know.
We've gone over and over and over again back to city council on, it seems like every year we have to go back and complain about what they're doing to the libraries. And because of our position, we advocate very effectively, and we've won more than we've lost. We did lose a big one a few years ago, but we've won more than we've lost. So in addition to new programs, we also look through the list, either at the local level, at the state level, or at the national level. And the national may send us, the years that we do national, they may send us a couple of positions that they think might need updating. So they'll send us the stuff that the information that they think we need, and we vote on that and we send it back. Maybe it doesn't need updating, maybe it's fine the way it is. But what I want you to hear is that our positions are listening to the voice of every member. Now, we define concurrence a little differently than I defined it when I was working in industry. In industry, concurrence was defined as you don't leave this room until it may not be what you want, but you can live with and support the position we've come up with. If we did that in the league, we'd probably never get anywhere. So it's a little more liberal than that. It's not a vote. It's not the ayes have it. But it is much more of a, people can abstain from voting, people can say I object, and it still goes through. So it's a little weaker form of concurrence, but we don't have anywhere near the kind of time that we had when I was working in industry for those kinds of things.
I've heard it described on the National's website as a sense of the room.
Yes, that's exactly what it says. It's a sense of the room. Where is the room going? You know, what does it feel like? But there would never be a vote because that ends up dividing us, right? Consensus is really looking for, can we promote this? Can we support this? Can we agree on this?
Well, Okay. So, as we have been saying all along, it's our responsibility as individual members and as a league to act on the positions that the league has. Okay? Okay. And you can do that by letters to the editor, by talking to your legislators, by any number of things. But the important word, I think, is speak for yourself. If you're not sure what the league's position is, if the league has a position and we want to do something, our president and a board are going to set some guidelines. And if the league does not have a position, but it's something you care about, I was devastated when they changed the name of our library downtown from Long Beach Main Library to somebody's name. I did a lot of talking about it. We have a position in libraries, but not on what its name is. I would never say, as a member of the League of Women Voters, something. Okay. So now you belong to another organization, and that organization is advocating for some issue. Again, you can participate in what they're doing, but you just can't bring the league's name in unless it comports with a position that the league has. Everything is dependent on volunteers. I mean, this is an organization where we don't have a lot of members, and those that we do have are going to be called on to put your shoulder to the wheel and get working. So, one of the places that I really am desperate for more volunteers is to be speakers for the pros and cons. And if we have 20 items on the ballot and we need 2 people every time we go out, and nobody's going to be going, constantly, we need, 10 or 12 members who will make themselves knowledgeable and available to go out and talk. And so I just think it's one of the fun things to do. But you're a teacher. You're presenting information. So okay, other places that we need help. What do we have? We have a voter. We don't have a voter anymore. We used to have a voter.
We have a voter. We still have it.
It's online.
Yeah.
Okay. But we'd like people to add information, and so among the things you might want to do is maybe you've read a good book that would be pertinent to things that the league members are interested in. You might want to write a little book review. Know about meetings that people want to know about. The voter is our vehicle for intra-league communication. Let's see, I got voter service, I guess. I would love to have a few more people who would like to participate as members of the voter service committee. Anybody who would like to help out with whatever responsibilities we get. That's as November comes along, we're going to have, March actually is the primary.
Yeah. Sorry,
so okay, and there are
in
other.
terms of other meetings, Lisa, what we need is for people to come to the board and say, I'm doing the February meeting, I need some help. So we know to steer people that way, because there are people that are in charge of each meeting, but we don't know whether they've got it handled or they need help. So.
And there's a page on the website about what committees you're interested in to sign up for. I think I have it as Kim to contact, so I'll change it to Jane as our new president. But there's an actual page on what are you interested in and what committees you'd like to volunteer for.
Filters through the membership chair.
Oh, okay. So we'll keep Kim on there.
Yeah, put Kim on there for now.
Okay.
Okay,
So thank you for your participation.
are there other questions?
Good question.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for your participation. Camera on.
Yeah. So I wanted to take just a few minutes while we're here and all together to say a very special thank you to one of our members. She has spent a lot of time, a lot of years as a board member, participating in events, working on committees, and she just recently asked to step down from the board, but she is still a very active member of this organization. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you very much. I've been, just loved being in this organization, and I'll always continue to be a league member.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.